Welcome to the Business Growth Factor podcast, where we have conversations about building better businesses. I'm here with Lyndon Smith, and I'm Josh Leyenhorst. And what are we talking about today, Lyndon?
So the topic for the episode today is the 90 days here, the 90-day rule in marketing. So effectively, what you're doing today is only going to yield results for you in 90 days from now.
Okay, awesome, interesting. So I guess what that will do is kind of help address the people who are like, hey, I'm doing some Facebook ads today, I should be seeing some sales tomorrow. Is that maybe an unrealistic expectation? Maybe that's a bit of a spoiler, I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's that's a good example to start off with is when you're doing your social media marketing or you've got any digital strategy that you're working on, you need to take a longer term approach to measuring those results so that you get accurate feedback or like results that you're looking at. So you're not going to say, hey, I've launched a campaign on Facebook and we've been running it for a week and it hasn't got any traction, or I haven't got any sales, I haven't brought on any new clients. You need to be doing that consistently over a 3-month or a 90-day period. And then measure the results from that, and then you'll see how effective your campaign's been. And I think maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of it here, Josh, but this is when you start measuring these results and you're collecting the information, testing and measuring and gathering the data, you can actually start taking a look at your acquisition costs and lifetime value of your clients and start bringing that information into some other parts of your business that we can dig into in other episodes as well.
I like that. I like the data side where you're going there. But why don't we maybe start kind of with some of the first things. So why don't we maybe define the whole idea of the 90-day marketing plan? Like what are we talking about there when we talk about the 90-day marketing plan? What are you referring to there?
Sure. So effectively, it's the 90-day rule. Whatever you're doing today, you're going to get the results in 3 months, in 90 days. It's probably one of the same reasons why we do quarterly planning. It's probably the same reason why we collect data. We use that data and prepare our quarterly plan, and we measure at the end of the quarter where we're at, what's been achieved. And it's a good enough time for when you start that 90-day rule with a marketing campaign for your campaign to create awareness, and typically just work them through that funnel that you have, and we've discussed that in a previous episode as well. But moving them through that sort of sales funnel or marketing funnel to actually get a result, because the result that you want is obviously client acquisition or sales, depending on what your campaign is all about. But effectively, you can't just launch a campaign and expect those results to happen immediately, right? This concept of this rule doesn't just apply in marketing, it applies in other areas of your business and I guess your life as well. I mean, if you think about I'm going to start a new gym program or exercise routine, you want to measure the results not after the first week. You want to measure the results after the first week, but you want to know that it's that you've achieved your goal after looking at the results after like 90 days or 3 months. You can watch the growth or the improvement over that 3-month period, but if you had to measure where you are current state or currently today and measure 3 months later, you'll see hopefully a substantial improvement in whatever it is that you're doing.
Right. Yeah, so we see it in business planning too, right? With like 90-day sprints on those quarterly objectives. Yep. For sure. It's interesting. It's almost like because in those situations you're taking a larger goal, like say a 1-year goal, and you're breaking it down into 90-day or quarterly sprints to get you there. Yep. But it almost seems like from the marketing perspective and what we're talking about, you need that 90 days. It's not just that you're breaking something down into 90 days, it's that it actually takes 90 days for some of that growth to happen and to get some of the data to be able to make adjustments to that as well.
It's so interesting you say that, and the one thing that came to mind now is it takes 9 months to have a baby. Yeah, it can happen sooner, but typically it takes 9 months to have a baby. Right? And we talk about trimesters, and I wonder if there's the link to the whole 90-day rule in there as well. But yeah, it takes 90 days to actually effectively measure a result. So if you're consistently, let's say your strategy, you've got a new campaign that you're running, and the strategy is to post on social media 2 or 3 times a week and test out like different types of posts and like what gets better engagements and impressions and things like that. You can only measure that really truly effectively over a 3-month period. So you've gone through like what's working, what's not working. Your goal is to implement that you want to test and measure different results while you're working through that campaign, and then you've got those metrics that you can, or those results rather, that you can look at the end of your campaign. You can make good decisions moving forward to say, all right, this performed really well, this didn't. You can actually sit and analyze the results and make, like I say, better informed decisions as you're moving forward. How do we improve now what we're doing, and that can lead into launching your next campaign or marketing strategy, whatever it is that you're looking at. Yeah.
So I like that, and being a bit of a numbers nerd myself, like my question would be like, what types of metrics then would be important to look at for somebody who might be, say, even starting out, right? If someone's like, hey, I've got a business, but I haven't really done a coordinated marketing campaign before. Let's get this started. Okay, now I know I need to at least give it 90 days to have it get some traction, get some data on it. What are some of the metrics that should be measured just to get that kind of feedback and to know how to tweak and adjust from there?
It's a really great question, and Josh, I think it all depends on the type of campaign or like the actual whatever it is that you're implementing, right? I mean, if you're looking at introducing a new ops, strategy or operational change, then that would define then what metrics you would look at over there. So it could be productivity, it could be culture, it could be employee engagement, it could be operational like efficiency. So how they improved doing this activity that maybe took 2 hours, now it's like only taking an hour and a half. So there's different results that you could be looking for over there. From a marketing perspective, excuse me, it's the same thing, right? It depends on what marketing campaign you're launching or what it is that you're actually running. But you could take a look at awareness or like impressions, some of those types of results, engagements, so people that are actually engaging with your content, and then that lead. So we spoke about those 6, I think it was 6 revenue drivers in previous episodes, like lead generation and conversion. So how many leads is this campaign generating, and then are we pulling in like good quality leads, or has this campaign really brought us awful leads, right? People that we don't necessarily want to service. And I've worked through that with a few clients before, where they where their targeting was maybe a little bit poor, or their campaign wasn't the right campaign for their business, and they just started attracting a whole lot of poor quality leads.
Interesting.
And you still got to service those leads, knowing that it's just going to waste your time. But if you don't service them, you're potentially going to get a really poor Google review, or So you got to get those results from the campaign, and then you can know that, hey, this is something not going to work going forward. But you got to measure that over a 90-day period typically. And I think for businesses that are still newer and starting up, it's just having that patience to get the results. So like you're going to start something now, don't expect a result to happen within the first or second week. You need to give that some time to actually for the campaign to work. So build that awareness, have that engagement, create those conversations or that lead generation, and then move them into like a conversion stage or cycle through your funnel effectively. Yeah.
Okay. So it kind of reminds me, you're talking about engagement on, say, social media and stuff. It reminds me a little bit of Someone just kind of rephrasing KPIs to mean not just key performance indicators, but key predictive indicators. It's almost like finding those indicators that predict whether or not things are going to happen in your business that you're looking for, whether that be sales or. And so I guess, it may be initiating a campaign, some kind of marketing campaign. It would be important to sit down and be like, hey, what are those? Would it be, maybe social media engagement? Maybe it's number of people walking in the door if you have a retail store, right? That type of thing. So you should theoretically see some kind of needle moving on those numbers at some point based on the activity. And I guess if you're monitoring those metrics fairly regularly, you can almost start to determine what that lag time might be, right? So if you're like, okay, if we post something here, and if it's really effective, theoretically, based on our data now, because you're using data to make decisions, it takes 3 weeks, for somebody to walk in the door after they see this, or whatever it might be, right? You can almost start to get a sense of when not just if the needle will move and by how much, but almost when it'll move as well.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, Josh, you already want to be in a position where you're measuring certain results, and the implementation of a campaign is just, so you're still measuring those same results, but you can now see by implementing this campaign, what impact it has on those results. So yeah, like you already want to be measuring, and if you're not measuring and you're introducing a campaign, well, get clear on what the metrics are that you want to be looking at, and start measuring that. And then when you change or you shift gears and like introduce another campaign, excuse me, you want to check what the results of that campaign is, and effectively you want to be looking at those results and say, I've invested, say, $2,000 in this marketing campaign, and it's brought me $10,000 of business, in this period. So I know that, in the next 6 months, if I invest in $2,000 in doing what we're doing here, it's going to get me $10,000. So I'm effectively paying $2,000 to get $10,000 worth of business.
Right. I guess that's where you get to what you're talking about as far as like client acquisition costs there.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into the weeds of that in another episode for sure. But it's taking that 90 days, getting good results, or getting the results, whether they're good or not, but getting good data rather, and then how you leverage that data moving forward.
Okay, so as far as like quarterly objectives, like what would that look like if somebody was going to take a 90-day marketing window and then create some like marketing strategy for that over a quarter? Like what might that look like to somebody who might be starting out or wants to hone in on how they're doing their marketing strategy?
Well, I think going back to the conversation on OKRs that we had before, big rocks, whatever framework you're using for your quarterly planning, you're going to create some objectives. You're going to define what the key results are, and you're going to roll that out into your organization. So if the objective is to increase sales or revenue by 15% in the next quarter, 20%, whatever those numbers turn out to be, that's going to have an impact on like the different departments, and you got to get everybody aligned. But the campaign that you're looking at would be, all right, well, we need in order for us to drive more revenue, we might have to, we know we've done this in the past and we've worked on this. Now we're going to implement this again, and then we can get those results. I don't know if I'm answering your question necessarily here, but there is a link between the 90 days and a lot of other things that happen. Those quarters. Mm-hmm. Like I mentioned earlier, it takes 9 months to get pregnant. There's like 3 trimesters in that process of making a baby or having a baby, producing a baby.
I think the making it may happen fairly quick, but we won't get into that. So what I'm kind of hearing then is because when we look at like quarterly strategic planning, so quite often we'll have specific metrics, whether it's around like profitability, cash flow, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. We'll have like the actuals, and then we'll have like a client's target. This is what I want it to be, and then we'll even look at, say, industry benchmarks. So in each quarter, you can kind of look at it and review it and be like, okay, this is actually where we landed. This is what we were hoping to be at. This is what industry is kind of showing other companies are achieving. So maybe having some kind of dashboard like that or something, some kind of scorecard where at least on a quarterly, I would even say, a monthly basis, so you can at least be a bit more agile in your decision making with the marketing. If you can see that is trending a certain way, you can start to make some of the steps to move it in the direction you want it to go, so that once you get to the end of the quarter and in the 90-day period, you can see some results there, right?
Yeah, and I think just like to comment on that, where you're saying having that agility to within a month, you can say, well, this is not really going the way that it needs to. My assumption would be that you've actually already tested and measured these results before. You're just implementing this campaign maybe at a different time of the year, or maybe in a different way. But you've kind of got that 90-day results from previous campaign launches, or like previous results that data that you have, which allows you to be a lot more agile. But if it's the first time that you're actually launching the campaign, you want to give it a 90-day cycle to be able to get that data, that accurate data to inform your decision making, and to allow you to be agile in the future. So maybe in the next the next quarter, you're still going to be running with that campaign, but you've got data that you worked on, and you can start looking back. So you don't have to wait till the end of that quarter, because you've been running with 3 months of data on a rolling cycle now, and you can make decisions based on that. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, that does make sense. Okay, so as far as like optimizing campaigns and stuff, like what would you suggest there then? Like what kind of process should somebody go through as they're looking at their campaign performance, their marketing campaign performance, over say like the last 90 days? What would that look like?
It's a really good question. I think if it's a first, and I go back to this, what I've just said there. If it's the first time you're running the campaign, just be patient. Do some A/B testing, and run a couple of different sort of messagings and like things like that. But get the data. Wait for that data. Wait 90 days to see how that campaign has actually performed. To answer your question about making the changes, I think you can make some changes in the way that you're implementing, or the tactics, but you're still running the full campaign. So going back to the earlier example that I had with social media, and I'm by no means a social media expert, so just a full disclaimer here, but you want to run that campaign for 3 months, where you're posting, you're testing out on which days you're posting. You're testing out like what kind of posts are getting better engagement. Do you get better engagement for LinkedIn carousels, or like video contents, reels, images? So testing what gets good engagement, what people are looking, where that engagement is higher, and how it then translates into a potential sale, or and I guess that also goes back to like what is the strategy behind implementing those social media campaigns? Is it you're creating the awareness and you're moving them into another funnel? You're not necessarily funneling them in through your like Facebook Messenger or LinkedIn messages, but you're kind of moving them through another into another funnel. And I think just being clear on that from the onset is really important. Going back to your question is, you in that 3-month cycle, you can be testing and getting results for different things that you're trying out there. So like different types of posts, when you're posting, the frequency of the posts, the type of content that you're putting out there, like all these types of things. So
what I'm hearing then, and maybe it doesn't totally apply, but if you think of like the 80-20 rule, right? So maybe like, as you talked about like testing different things, like A/B testing and different types of posts, or people looking more at reels or engaging more with certain types of content. If you start to identify, I guess, maybe where like 80% of the engagement is happening, maybe that's the area then where you start to focus more. And so when it comes to optimizing your marketing campaigns and tweaking them moving forward, it would be, let's look at where we're getting the most engagement, stop spending time and resources on the types of engagement or types of content that we have been doing. And I guess how we're talking right now probably makes it sound primarily like it's social media marketing, but like in marketing in general, right? Whatever type of content it might be. Yeah. So you're basically looking at what's driving the most kind of engagement, and then essentially focusing on that, and then starting to chip away at the other stuff, and not really spend time and resources on that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it kind of it speaks to another component as well. So specifically around social media, you don't want to go out there and invest $5,000 on ad spend and things like that. You want to start off small, maybe like $100 or $200, and test out like the results over that 90-day period on different campaigns, or not campaigns, but different excuse me. Like different types of posts and different types of things that you're working on, and then you've got data that you can use. And now I've run this campaign for 3 months. I know what the results are. Sorry, I just want to close a few things that are popping up on my screen here and distracting me. I know what the results are, so I know that it will be worthwhile. Instead of putting $100 or $200 into boosting or paying for ads, I can maybe bump that up to like $500 and see what the results are for the next 3 months, and then start ramping that up, and maybe even looking at like $1,000 or $2,000 a month on ad spend. But now you're putting it in the right areas, right? So you're getting those results. Now we're using social media as an example, but it could be any marketing campaign, right? It could be maybe you're testing out being part of an association, or I can't even think of any any good examples here. But it's you don't go to a networking event and expect results from that immediately, right? You don't go join an association and expect the results from that immediately. You go there, you build those relationships, you develop your business relationships with those people. And you can start seeing at the end of the 90 days how those relationships have started to turn into potential business, right? So you can see that the investment of your time and the resources and everything that you require for that to happen, that campaign to happen, is it worthwhile? Is it do we put more in there? Do we expand that? Do we grow that? And then because you've got the results, you've actually measured it over a 90-day period. If you're just going to do it for a couple of weeks and think like, I'm not getting the results out of this, it's pretty poor strategy.
It's interesting you mentioned relationship, Lyndon, because ultimately when we're talking about building better businesses, right? Really, for the most part, relationship is like one of the key foundations of having a good business, and whether that's relationships internally with your team or with externals, right? So clients, other stakeholders, super important. And so if you think about it, even the process of developing a relationship doesn't take 2 days or a couple of weeks, right? Usually it does take months and longer, and years. And if we think that people typically do business with those that they know, like, and trust, right? Know, like, and trust, that's really relationship development, and that does take time. And depending, of course, on the type of business you have, right? If you're selling like little plastic widgets that break tomorrow, people aren't necessarily looking for a strong relationship to buy those things from, right? But oftentimes, larger service type businesses or whatever it might be, contractors, whatever it might be, like, people want to know who you are, they want to like you, they want to trust you, which means they want to have some kind of pre-existing relationship with you, which means it's not taking 2 days or 2 weeks, right? This is going to take some time to develop.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, and it makes me think of like the 90, or it's a 3-month probation period when you join a new company, right? In South Africa, it's pretty difficult to fire. I wouldn't say difficult, but there's a pretty intense process that you got to go through to remove someone from your business, and there needs to be pretty serious justification in place for that. But if they're in a probationary period, interestingly enough, that's typically a 90-day or 3-month probation, right? Is it the same here in Canada?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because one of the services we actually provide for our clients is just, it's just kind of free of charge for existing clients, is just a reminder when they hire a new client, or new employees rather, they'll get a notification from us basically 2 to 3 weeks out from that probationary period end date, that 3-month end date, just so they know it's coming up. Because a lot of times, so it's very similar to answer your question, but a lot of times what ends up happening is a business will hire somebody and time goes by, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, that 90-day period is like over a month ago, right? And so we'll send out a notification, just be like, hey, this is coming up in 3 weeks. Here's a list of things you should probably review to make sure this is a good fit before, maybe having to make a difficult decision after the fact, right? A bit of a digression, I guess, or a bit of a rabbit trail from what we were talking about, but important nonetheless, because it does come down to relationship at the end of the day and how people assess the quality of the relationship of those who they're entering into business with, whether it's like a client-customer type transaction or employee-employer transaction, whatever it might be.
I think there's definitely some correlation between that 90-day rule, in terms of like bringing someone on board, as well as marketing, because it's you're taking 90 days to bring someone into your business, or for them to come into, for you to go into their business. So it's that relationship that you're establishing. It's building the rapport, the trust, and then getting them to a point where they're comfortable to make a decision to say, okay, hey, let's rock and roll here. Let's get it done. Yeah.
So what do they say? Does it take 90 days to form a habit and like 30 to break it or something like that? So maybe that first 90 days too, like with any kind of marketing initiative you might be doing, you're also like paving the habitual paving stones, like setting those paving stones in place as well during that 90-day period to make sure you're doing what it is that's part of your marketing campaign, that you're tracking the things you should be tracking, that you're aware of what you should be looking for to watch performance there. So a lot of benefits to the 90-day there, it looks like. We're coming up on this 30 minutes here, Lyndon. Just curious if there's anything else you wanted to mention before we wrap up here.
Well, I think, just a couple of like key takeaways from my side. And sorry, I've got a bunch of things popping up on my screen again here.
Popular guy on Friday morning.
Do not disturb next time. A few key sort of takeaways here. And I think, what's super important is to understand like what metrics you're going to be measuring over that 90 days before you start running your campaign. So it doesn't matter if it's you're making some operational changes, like what is it that you're testing and measuring, what results are you looking for. If you're running a new marketing campaign, same thing. What are you currently testing and measuring? What do you need to test and measure? What what metrics are you looking at? And then you make sure that you're actually getting the information and the data and the feedback throughout that 90-day period. Same with hiring a new employee. Like what data are you looking for? What qualities are you looking for to make sure that they're a good fit? That 90-day period. When you bring in someone into your business, what is it that you're looking for? Making sure that they like part of your culture. 90 days is a good enough time to for someone to go off tracks a little bit and
honeymoon phase ends, right?
I think there's a few key takeaways from me is really just understanding those metrics before launching your campaign or starting with that 90-day rule, but then also just being patient and letting that 90-day cycle run up. And then making sure that you're maybe going through some iterations in there, but you're not changing the strategy. You might be changing some of the tactics inside there, but you're not changing the strategy behind the exercise that you're going through. I
like it. Yeah, I think a key takeaway on my part is just having the patience for that 90 days. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a results guy. I like to see the needle move when I do things, and sometimes if it doesn't, I think the tendency might be to think this is not working, but to be patient and be like, okay, some of these things do take time to develop and to grow, and then to, like you say, give the data to then make decisions on how to tweak it from there. Be like, okay, maybe it's not working the way I wanted it to, but it is working a little bit, and it's working a little bit because of this little section here. So let's focus on that little section and carve everything else off. And then that's where you allocate your marketing spend after that or something. So
absolutely. And I think as business owners, we can be super frustrated if we're not getting results quickly. Like we're ebbing and flowing and like bobbing and weaving, and we're sort of just rolling with the punches some days. And you kind of want things to happen and track really quickly. But this is really where you're collecting data, and this is how your business grows, where you have that data to make informed decisions moving forward. Like I know, I think every business owner is like, we got to get it done. We got to get it done now. We need results now. But you just have that patience to run the cycle through. Make sure that you're clear on what you're tracking. Make sure that you are actually tracking it, and get the data and the results, and then use that to make informed decisions moving forward. Take those results into your quarterly planning sessions with the rest of your leadership team, and you can use that to drive your business forward.
And that's a good segue into another topic to have, is just the importance of quarterly planning sessions. I mean, 90-day planning strategies, 90-day meetings, like revisiting your goals and your performance every 90 days, super critical. And that's maybe something we can talk about another time, because super important. I like it.
Absolutely. Josh, thanks so much. And thanks to the listeners again.
For sure, yeah. If you find these conversations interesting, be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast here, and stick around, and we will have more to come.
Yeah. See you guys again. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Lyndon.
Bye now.